Yo, shout outs to B Shine, because I shine, you shine, and the B Shine. You know how we get down. This is XL from the Kreators out of Boston, Mass. My love of hip hop music started at a very young age, and I was able to, in Boston, it's just such a small community, a small city. I was able to put myself in a position where I could get close to a lot of the rappers that I looked up to. I thought that there was an opportunity to get with a collective group of people and really make an impact. It wasn't back when I started. It wasn't as flooded as it is now because it was a lot harder to make records back then. So I think Boston for a long time was overlooked. I love that underdog status. I love the fact that New York was like the big brother in that we were always kind of competing with them in a harmless way. Sort of just about making good music. So the reason I love Boston too is that they really brought it. You know what I mean? It was a very challenging element to it because it was so small. You couldn't really talk shit or suck and get away with it. So I kind of always liked that real competitive feel to it. And we have a lot of really big pioneers that came out of this city. So, I wanted to be a part of that. You know what I mean? My love for hip hop music. And it was close. You could touch it. You could see dudes like Ed O.G. and Big Shug. You know what I mean? You could see the RSO. You could see Scientific. You know what I mean? You could see people like this and introduce yourself to them. And, it was a real nice unit, like a nice like family hip hop vibe. It was a lot of backstabbing too that went on, but the challenge was to go above that. So, as a youth, when I heard Fat Boys, Jailhouse Rap, and LL Cool J Radio, I heard those songs and was like, holy shit. And when I heard that, I was like, well, I got to do that. You know what I mean? I'd say my greatest visual impact on that kind of solidified my approach to hip hop was I saw Public Enemy live in Rhode Island. It was Public Enemy, Salt and Pepper, and the Ghetto Boys. And I remember Public Enemy shut it down. They brought out like a KKK member, and then they hung him on stage. And it was fucking bananas. And I was like, oh my God, you know what I mean? That was it. Like if I had any reservations about being an MC or wanting to be a part of the culture, like if I was unsure, I didn't know. After that, that was it. I was just sucked in. And that was the moment where that's it. I'm not just a fan of the culture. I'm going to live this, so. It was really funny, in the beginning, the first rap group I ever had was a group called D&V, and it was Darren and Victor. And, that was, back then, this is going way back, because I've been rapping for 20 years. So we did a song about Mike Tyson, because I was a huge boxing fan. I'm a huge boxing fan, and Mike Tyson was convicted of rape, Desiree Washington, and we found out too that she had another case going against another guy. So we wanted to make a politically driven song, an agenda song, being this is bullshit. So that was when I started, but I knew nothing about anything in the industry. So I kind of bounced around with that. Then I met G Squared, who was a producer, MC, and DJ for the Kreators, who's also a huge DJ out in Vegas right now. Shout outs to G Squared. G Squared was the one that really put me on, and I was able to kind of piggyback because I wasn't really that good then. You know what I mean? I kind of sucked, and Jeff brought me into it. So we went up to Canada. He started a group called Cypher. I was there for that. I got a big education. Then we came back to the States after the Cypher record, and we formed Kreators. And Kreators kind of changed a little bit. So when I first started taking it seriously, it was with Cypher. The other shit was just kind of like me getting my feet wet. And then the things we did to get heard, when we formed the Kreators, we were lucky. We got an investor, and we paid for studio time, but back then it was a big deal because you had to if you were going to be a group, you had to have bread to record. You couldn't record at your house on fucking Pro Tools or Fruity Loops or whatever. You know, the beat maker had to have like an MPC or an SP12 or some shit. And in order for you, like, you didn't just go to the studio and make songs if you weren't going to put them out, because you were spending so much money to record on 2-inch Ampex and mix and master. You know, it wasn't like, there was no like editing and shit like there's now. That back then it was like a format. Like, you made records, and then you went out and you went to fucking radio stations and you did interviews and you did live shows and you tore it down. And then after your balls got big enough and your skills got big enough, you left the confines of your home where everybody eventually loves you because you're a local, and you go test the market, you know. And then, you know, we put videos out. We had videos on MTV, and the internet wasn't even really popping then. So we got hooked up, like DJ Premier put us on an industry mixtape, which was huge. And what we did to get heard was we did the work. We did the footwork, a lot of footwork that you don't have to do now. You know what I mean? Now you can just pay people to like flood the internet with your shit. Back then, we had to grind. You had to do shows, interviews. They didn't tell you like how many times you had to get in the car and drive like 2 or 3 hours just to do a 10-minute interview on a fucking radio. You're like a college radio station, you know? So that was what we did. You know, you put up posters. You know what I mean? Posters, you know, actual paper posters and stickers stapled everywhere. You know what I mean? So that was what we did. It's really funny, you know, my father had me when he was 52. He was an Italian-American, born on the ship on the way over here, had 11 brothers and sisters, had a father die when he was really young, and he was a musician. I have musicians on both sides of my family. I was a state accordion champion player. I played Rachmaninoff, Tchaikovsky, you know, Tchaikovsky, everything, Chopin. I played all that. I was, as a young kid, very competitive in the field of music, and it was really, my father put a lot of effort and time into me doing that because I had a natural gift as a musician. So when I switched to go make hip-hop, he was really open-minded for a man in his 70s, okay? Like, he was not tolerant of a lot of ignorant behavior, and he didn't close his eyes to it, but he wasn't too thrilled about it. My mother was just kind of like, you know, well, maybe you can do it, make some money at it, you know, and yeah, there are reservations. But when my father saw me on MTV, like years later, he was sitting in the living room watching the MTV because it came on, the video. And afterwards, he pulled me aside and he said, you know what? He said, I don't really get what you're doing exactly. He says, you know, I know music, I know art. He goes, and I know you're living a certain life right now and you're doing this. He said, and I never really understood it. He said, but after seeing what I just saw on that MTV, he called it the MTV because he was so old school. He said, after seeing that, he goes, I realized that you had to work really hard to do that. And he goes, and millions of people just saw that. And he goes, and for a family full of musicians, he said, you definitely took it farther than anybody. He goes, and I'm real proud of you. So at first there was a little resistance, and then there was an embrace of it. You know, I mean, I didn't help either because, you know, along with the lifestyle, when you're young and you're stupid, you know, all you do is party and do drugs and get into fights. So they see that shit and they see it as harmful behavior, but that would have happened whether I was making hip hop or not. You know what I mean? So it was mixed in the beginning, but, you know, and then my mother was at my record release party. My father had already passed away then, but my mother was there, and she dug it, man. She thought it was cool, you know? So, yeah, it was mixed in the beginning. You know, the person who really had my back the most in the beginning was a big influence on my hip-hop career was my best friend Mike Jones, who passed away about 3 years ago now. He died really young. It's very heartbreaking, but he was a huge influence. If I didn't meet Mike Jones my freshman year, eighth, ninth year of school, I probably wouldn't have made hip-hop like I do. So I owe a debt of gratitude for him forever for that. So I was in California, I think this was 2002, and we played a thing called Skate Jam. And there was like 20,000 people there. And we played with like Rozelle and Dr. Dre and Snoop and God, who else? The Alcoholics. And we were out there at Skip Saylor's studio with the Alcoholics, and it was dope, you know. And it was crazy. They had like all these quarter pipes and shit set up. Dudes were doing BMX tricks in the middle of the venue. It was insane. And I was on stage, And this was, I think, our second. Yeah, after our second album, we were out there doing a show. We had done 2 shows, and that was the highlight. We were doing a show, and I'm in the middle of my verse, and I look down, and there's a kid in the front row, and he's going word for word with me on one of my raps, and that blew my mind. Like, that was, I looked at that kid, and I remember being that kid with, like, a Gangstar record or a Run DMC record, like, or a Public Enemy record. Like, I was mouthing every lyric, you know what I mean? But I'm not Public Enemy. I'm not Chuck D. You know what I mean? I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not Reverend Run. I'm not, Cool G Rap. But that kid bought my record, and he learned it word for word. And that one moment in my career, that was a very humbling experience. I looked at that dude and I almost stopped rapping because I was so blown away that he actually knew my shit. That was a career point in my life where I felt really blessed and really, really humbled. That was an amazing experience. I mean, there's been so many artists that I've worked with that I have a lot of respect for and that I love. A lot of friends, great hip hop pioneers. But that moment for me stands out as a clear moment in my career that I was just blown away. As a kid, I was very much like a pleaser. Like, I wanted to make people happy, a people pleaser. And I think in the beginning, I wanted everybody to like me. And I think the biggest part of my career that helped me the most was when I realized that the art that I was creating and making was my music. It belonged to me. And I was, determined to share that with people and see how they felt about it. I think the biggest part for me, the biggest thing I had to overcome was not giving a fuck what people thought about me. I couldn't worry about making everybody happy. I had to make me happy. And once I did that, the music became more genuine. It wasn't contrived, you know what I mean? So I think getting out of my own way and letting myself flourish as an artist, that was probably the biggest challenge. Right at the offset, I had to fight for people to take me serious because there weren't any white boys rapping then. I mean, there weren't. You know what I mean? I don't mean to make it black and white, but it was what it was. So a lot of people thought it was a joke. They thought it was a gimmick, and I had to spit a lot of hard bars and punch a lot of dudes in the face to prove that it wasn't, So that's about it, yeah. Being able to meet so many other amazing artists, people that I looked up to like Pete Rock, DJ Premier, and meet people like that. But I would say the biggest thrill that I got, what made me so proud, was learning a really important lesson from Guru. May he rest in peace. So he told me that Guru told me. He came up and he did the hook for Boston, the home song that we did. It was an anthem for Boston. It was a big song. And he told me that, I was a very approachable guy and that I had a duty to hip-hop to try to give back to those people around me, to up-and-coming artists. And he told me that it wouldn't always translate into money or fame, but at the end of my career and at the end of my life, I would be able to look back and know that I helped plant seeds that were going to replenish the supply of real hip-hop in my local community. So I think probably the thing I'm most proud of has been my ability to work with a lot of young artists and kids to use hip-hop as like teaching life lessons and to help steer people to the correct path. I've done a lot of that, and I would say that giving back to up-and-coming artists is probably the thing that I'm most proud of, that I'm so happy about, because I love working with the kids that are younger that need some direction, need some focus, need some help. That makes me happy. I really enjoy that. I like helping people. You know what I mean? So that shit makes me happy. I've worked with so many up and coming artists, young artists that are gonna remember that. You know what I mean? Even if they got one thing from me, that shit makes me happy. You know what I mean? That, and like my friend is coach for a football team, and he wanted some original music, and it's a local football team, small town. So I made him like his very own theme music, and the kids' jaws hit the floor, and the parents were like, "Oh my God," and the other teams were like, "Oh my God." Like, that's why I make my music. I make it to get that response out of people, like, "Oh my God, really?" I don't give a fuck what people think, but when people are excited about something that I've created, and then they get that look on their face, like, oh my God. I mean, that's I make somebody happy with my music. I made like 15, 20 little kids and some grown-ups super happy. I mean, fucking, what is better than that? You know what I mean? Like, just from going in and putting a little bit of work in, So those two things, that's important to me. That I was an artist first, that I made music and art because I wanted to, that I was never driven by the almighty dollar, that I wasn't afraid to speak my mind and say shit because I was afraid that it might get me blackballed or do something like that. Like, not to be like, oh, I'm a nonconformist, but like, somebody that really believed in the elements of hip hop and believed in that rap is something you do and hip hop is something you live. You know what I mean? Somebody that always loved hip hop and music and stayed true to it and tried to help as many people as he could. You know what I mean? And because look, man, honestly, I'm a club fighter, and what a club fighter is somebody that had the skills, had the talent, but for whatever reason never quite made it. And he's not Floyd Mayweather, but on any given day could give Floyd Mayweather a bad time. That's just what it is. You know what I mean? Like, I don't take this game right now the way it's set seriously enough to give up everything in my life and try to pursue it, because I just think that my lane is the lane that I'm in. And even though I'm willing to change and grow it, I'm not willing to sacrifice and do the things necessary now to make it without feeling like I've torn a piece of my own soul out. So I'm a club fighter. I'm deadly on any day. I can give any rapper in the world a run for their fucking money. I could even, if I catch him right, I could knock him out. And that's who I am. You know what I mean? I want to be real about it. You know what I mean? I'm not chasing the starlight. I'm not chasing everybody's applause and everybody's love. An artist creates art because they're driven with this internal desire and need to create the art. I make it. You dig it? Cool. If not, fucking move on. You know what I mean? I'm not going to lose sleep about it. I'm not going to be upset if you don't like me. I'm not afraid to say what I think. And I don't give a fuck if somebody ain't going to work with me because they think I'm a fucking hater or some dumb shit because they don't know how to perceive it, or people aren't intelligent enough to understand the way I am. Fuck it. You know what I mean? I'm happy. I've had a beautiful career. I've met beautiful people. I've been able to make music with a group of men that I respect and love. I've been able to make music on my own. I've built some of the most amazing friendships and relationships with people because of it. And I'm a very grateful guy, man. And I like to think that people know that.